Hi, this is Tony Byrne presenting Money Demystified, the show to make your money grow. Today we're going to talk about everything to do with life planning, and I have a very special guest today who is Steve Conley, the founder of the Academy of Life Planning, no less. Steve is a successful businessman. He runs several businesses. He is the founder of the Academy of Life Planning, and he used to, for his sins, work in the financial services industry. So, Steve, welcome to my show today.
Pleased to be here, Tony. Thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Now, Steve, I find it very interesting what you do today as running the Academy of Life Planning. But before we get on to that, in the next part of the show, in this first section, could you tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, school, family, your kind of education? What's your background?
Yeah, so I grew up in South Manchester, so you can probably tell from the accent. But I went to a comprehensive school. I did very well. I got 6 A-levels, went on to university, Manchester University, and I got a degree in mathematics. So at the time, growing up, I was very keen to get a job that paid lots of money because I came from a one-parent family. My mother brought us up. I had 2 brothers and a sister, so we're quite poor. It's quite difficult to make ends meet, and I always wanted to kind of not be in that situation when I grew up. So it was quite funny really at school when we had the career sessions. And I asked what was the best paid job possibly. And they told me an actuary was the best paid job. So I thought, well, okay, I'll do that then. So what do I need to be an actuary? I need a maths degree. I was really good at maths. So I did that, got a degree, and I got a job as an actuarial student at a local insurance company called Refuge Assurance. That was back in 1982. So it was many years ago. Did actuarial exams, and I hated them. I thought it was all about numbers, and it was completely boring, and I was useless at it. I had no interest in it. It's not what I loved to do. Yeah. It was what I was good at, but it wasn't what I loved to do.
Yes.
So that was missing. So I thought, well, what do I love to do? Well, I quite liked kind of marketing. That sounded quite exciting. And so I thought, well, how do you market financial services? And what exams can I do for that? And I found the CII, Chartered Insurance Institute exams, and I did that. And I won the awards for the best performance in the northwest of England 2 years on a trot for my associateship, fellowship, and I qualified as a professional in the financial services industry in 1989. I became chartered. So I got noticed within the organisation, and they thought, well, perhaps you could be a director in the future. So they moved me around as a manager here, a manager there. I became a head of pensions for the company. I worked there for about 18 years until 2000. And I was head of pensions for the company, national sales force, about 1,200 advisors. I used to go around the country training advisors on how to sell pensions, and increasing pension sales by 30% year after year.
Wow.
And then the bank got bought by Royal London. The insurance company got bought by Royal London, and I decided to go and join the banks instead. I thought instead of being a big fish in a small pond, I went to become a small fish in a big pond.
Uh-huh.
And I climbed up the corporate ladder, head of pensions and investments for Santander, and then later for head of investments and pensions for Royal Bank of Scotland Group, which was NatWest, Royal Bank of Scotland, some other brands, Tesco Personal Finance, Coots. Then went on to be head of investments for HSBC, so for the UK. So I sort of gone through this climbing up the corporate ladder as a pensions and investment professional within the financial services industry to the very top. I was head of investments for the biggest bank in the world. Mm-hmm. And launching multi-billion-pound projects year after year.
Mm-hmm.
until I was age 50. So, and then things very much changed.
What caused that change?
It was what happens when we go through life is that we very much focus in our early years on accumulation and accomplishment. So a young adult life, we want to kind of build money and create money. And then we go through this, Dr. Wayne Dyer calls it the shift, which is you kind of become aware that life isn't just about you and wealth. There's far more to life than that. You are part of a community, you're part of the world, you have a part to play in it. And in Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about it in the film The Shift and the book The Shift, is a shift from a focus on yourself, on accumulation, accomplishment, to really a focus on others and the contribution you can make in the world. And it's a conscience. You kind of start to tap into your conscience and you go, this really happens in the afternoon or evening of your life, where you realize there's actually a lot more important things in life than yourself and money. Mm. And that's really where I was going with the change. When I was 50, head of investments, the top bank, I decided, I basically realized that I wanted to make a contribution to the world. I wanted to do something good and positive and not just simply be top of my profession. And I looked around me and my colleagues really weren't on the same page in terms of that. They were still focusing on accomplishment and returns for shareholders and bankers' bonuses and things like that. So it really came to a time I had to make a decision, which direction was I going to go. Mm-hmm. So I chose to actually leave and set up on my own. And
what was that, Steve? When did you set up your own business?
So that was 2011, so it's 10 years ago.
Fairly recent, really. That's quite a bold move. Most people would think that's quite a bold thing to do. Did you have trepidation? Did you feel that you couldn't, you might not struggle, you might not be successful, although you do have a very good track record academically and in work?
Yeah, absolutely.
What made you have the confidence to feel you could start your own business?
Well, I'd always had a desire to start my own business. I was looking at some research recently. We said that, I think it was Gallup, said 2 out of 3 people actually would like to have their own business. So yeah. I'm not in the minority here, but a lot of people don't have the confidence or knowledge to know how to do that. And I thought I did because of my financial planning expertise. I was able to kind of look at the cash flow that I was, my savings, and I kind of worked out that I had sufficient savings to weather a few years of poor income. And as a result of that cash flow forecast, I was able to make a decision confidently to leave a high-paid job where 6-figure income and plus big bonuses and things to nothing, to what I now call the real world, which is where, it all depends on you and what you do and what you choose.
That's pretty good. And so what was your first business? Was this wasn't the Academy of Life Planning, was it?
No, the first business, it was actually a regulated financial advice firm called Surely Financial Services.
So it called?
Surely
Financial Services. Okay.
Surely in Lancashire. Yeah.
Okay.
So, it was a regulated IFA.
Okay. How did that go and what made you move on from that?
Yeah, so I was there for a couple of years. It's my own business. I was appointed representative of a network, but essentially Surely Financial Services was my own business. As a one-man band. It's very difficult these days for to set up without a client base as a one-man band and to get into the financial services industry. To start from scratch with nothing, with no client base and just a bank account with some savings in it. And I found that after 18 months I was kind of about breaking even. I was getting about £4,000 in a month and paying out £4,000 and not paying myself. So I kind of figured out that the business model wasn't quite right, So a lot of the outgoings were as a result of being a regulated business.
Yes.
And a lot of my focus was more on life planning than it was financial planning.
Okay.
So I was
So Steve, what is the difference, in your opinion, between life planning and financial planning? Because I know that in the Academy of Life Planning, which you formed, you have some practitioners who just do purely life planning, and others that you do life planning but also offer financial planning at like a later stage of the advice process. So what is the difference between the two, in your opinion?
Yeah, so what I came to realise in the latter years at the banks is that a trusted advisor always plans the client before they plan the money.
Yes.
So I basically the planning of the client, planning the ideal life is the life plan. And only then, when you've done the life plan, can you really put in place the financial architecture to support the ideal life.
Yes.
So there's a piece of work that needs to be done before you look at the money, and that is look at your life.
Yes.
So the difference between the two is simply in the first half of the conversation, you look at your life and you say, well, this is my ideal life. This is what I would want it to look like.
Yes.
And then the second part of the conversation, you look at the money and you say, well, this is the money that needs to be in place to support that life.
Okay. So before we go to the break, I just want to ask you, did this then lead you to forming the Academy of Life Planning? I'm itching to get onto that bit.
Yeah. So I realised that I could carry on planning the client and planning the money, but not selling products. So I changed the name of Chorley Financial Services to the Academy of Life Planning. So I did that after 18 months. So it is the same company technically, but I just morphed it from being an IFA to being an Academy of Life Planning.
Okay, that's fantastic, Steve. Very fascinating so far. Very interesting. It's a classic rags to riches story. If you can define yourself as rich today, sorry to plant that one on you. But I do find this story very interesting, as do our listeners, of course. So before we explore a lot more about the Academy of Life Planning and all the very interesting studies you've done of practitioners in this field that have inspired you, before we get onto that, Steve, what do you do to relax or switch off, if you ever do?
Yeah. So, Tony, what I do is I'm a portfolio entrepreneur is the way I describe myself. So I run a number of businesses, some on a voluntary basis. So I think, we all have gifts and talents, and our purpose in life is to use them to help others. And you can do that in a commercial sense or do that in a non-commercial sense. So I do a lot of voluntary work. So I'm a member of something called I'm an ambassador for something called the Transparency Task Force, which is a collaborative campaigning community to help restore trust and confidence into the financial services industry. So it's a global organisation. We have representation in all the major markets, and we're talking to the politicians and the regulators and trying to get things changed. So I'm a volunteer for that. Sometimes lead the team, sometimes participate in the team. So it's not really relaxing, but it's the other thing I do as well is there's a lot of scams and scandals in the world. Also now with COVID, the amount of money that's lost in the UK every year is £180 billion, which is about the size of the NHS budget. And that's how much people lose in scams, scandals, fraud.
I didn't realise it was that big. No.
So what I do is the police, the Financial Conduct Authority, Serious Fraud Office, pretty ineffective. Only 20 pence is ever recovered in every £100 that's lost. So I, again, have not-for-profit business that help people to try and recover their money. And I don't really make anything myself out of that. It's just because it needs to be done. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? So I kind of do that. So then I run three more businesses that are profit-making as well as that. So there's at least 5 meaningful projects there. So,
unfortunately, I haven't got time to discuss all of those today, but I was driving that really. Do you do anything to totally switch off other than business or voluntary work? Or is that just your life? I mean, maybe that is your passion.
It is my life. So, in between that, in between the meaningful projects, simply just walk the dog, enjoy time with family.
Yes.
Just, relax in that way. The way I see it is, time is limited. And if we put into our time the small things first, then we don't have time for the big things.
Yes. So, Steve, you've explained to me previously some very interesting concepts that you promote and that you teach. So who or which people have inspired you the most to become who you are today?
Yeah, so I think there's someone a famous author that's inspired me twice in my career, which is Stephen R. Covey. The first time he inspired me was when I was starting out in the banks and having to build a new business every year, a multi-million-pound business. And the directors turned around to me when I presented my first business plan, and I said, it's going to make £35 million, this. And the directors of the bank said, we wouldn't get out of bed for anything less than 50 million. That's like I had to learn how to do a business plan for a business that would make more than 50 million. So Stephen R. Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in there, the habit number 4 was about win-win strategy. Yes. And creating a win for your business and a win for your consumers. Customers. And that was the most profitable way forward to create something that was great for both sides. You get win-lose strategies, lose-win strategies, lose-lose strategies. The best strategy is a win-win strategy. So I then went back with the business plan that was a win-win strategy and went on that. That business became a market leader, the UK's largest worksite marketing operation. And then year after year, they said, well, that was last year, Steve, we need another business. And ultimately, so I had to use the same framework again and again and again. And eventually, by the time I was head of investments, HSBC, where I was there for 5 years, I had to produce £5 billion businesses each year, So I use this framework. So I took this framework away, I've got this framework, and I use it with my clients now. So to help them create wealth, create assets, create business assets. And that's a big part of what I do at the Ed Academy of Life Planning.
That's really fascinating. So, Steve, I know you've explained to me that you teach people that they should do what they love, what they're good at, and what the world needs and is willing to pay for. And that really resonated with me because, like you, I'm at the same stage of life where I'm more in the giving stage. I've done my accumulation, and you just want to give back when you get older, which is what we both love doing. But can you expand on that a bit, how you help people with your life planning to go through the stage you went through, really, to recognise what they love and are good at, etc. Can you explain that a little bit to the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So the concept of doing what you are good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you get paid for comes from Japan. And it's a concept called Ikigai. It is to be found most in the south of Japan, in the islands in Okinawa, where people are doing what they love, what they're good at, what the world needs, and what they get paid for, and living till they're 100.
Yes.
That's the longest living population on the planet is in the islands of Okinawa. It's basically a secret to long and happy life, So if you think about wealth, health, and happiness, in the West, we just simply tend to focus on the wealth element. But if you find some work that doesn't feel like work, that you're good at, that you love, that world needs, that gets paid for, you can carry on working in that way, and you may never wish to retire. And you have a long and happy and prosperous life, having wealth, health, and happiness in your life. So it's a mechanism for finding wealth in every area of your life, not just your bank account. So I say rich is what you have in your heart, not your bank account, and that's kind of where we get to with the Ikigai. So what I do with my clients when I'm working on, and what I help other planners to do, is identify for people, what are you good at? What do you love? And then I use my business planning methodology and framework to work out what does the world need and what you get paid for. And it's that combination of the business planning idea and your life plan that creates what I now call the game plan. It's a plan for creating wealth in every area of your life.
Yeah, that's really, really great. You and I think, are similar in that, I don't know, we're going to come on to this in the next part of the show particularly, but I don't have any plans to retire, and I suspect you're the same, or you're not.
Yeah. And
that's what you teach your clients, isn't it? That whilst they can decide to retire, I think you teach them they don't have to. And can you expand on that? Because that would make a lot of listeners feel a bit uncomfortable, thinking, I don't want to work forever.
Yeah, okay. So it's the concept of work is how 90% of the population define work. If you define work as exchanging your time for money, then of course you don't want to carry on doing that until your old age.
Yes.
What I find with my clients when I identify what they're good at and what they love, I say, that's some great know-how that you built up over your life there. How about exchanging your know-how for money instead of time?
Yes.
So if you exchange your time for money, the income you receive is called linear income. And basically, as soon as your job stops, your income stops.
Yes.
So that's the concept of retirement. When you exchange your know-how for money, the income you get is passive income. So you earn while you sleep. It's nocturnal income. It's if you can move from being exchanging your time for money to exchanging your know-how for money, you can move away from, you can retire and still be receiving income. And you do this through meaningful projects. And this comes back to the other book that Stephen R. Covey wrote, which is called The Eighth Habit. And in it, he talks about exactly what I've just told you about exchanging your know-how for money. And he said, in a quote from Stephen R. Covey is, by all means, retire from your job, but never retire from meaningful projects.
Yes, yes.
And the idea is if you retire and you have no purpose to, you've got no reason to get up in the morning. And Bitch Anthony, another life planner, says that money is what helps you sleep at night, but purpose is what helps you get up in the morning.
Absolutely. Spot on. Fantastic.
So you don't want to retire without purpose, and how you do that is meaningful projects.
Yeah, that's great. So, I think that's really amazing. That really does resonate with me, because when I look at these people like David Attenborough, he's 95. That man, is he working, or is he got every day with a purpose? He really
Warren Buffett is another one. He's 95.
Yeah.
And he's wealthiest, one of the wealthiest men on the planet. But he laughs as he goes to work.
Yes, that's right. I think that he actually says that he skips to work, and he's 90 years of age.
Yeah,
quite amazing. Anyway, we want to talk about the future. So, Steve, without any further ado, how do you envisage your life panning out over the next 10 years and well beyond, I hope?
Yes, well, it's about retirement, really, and the difference between retirement from your job and retirement from meaningful projects. And I realised that when I left the banks when I was 50, I actually retired. Retired from the job. And what I started up was a portfolio of meaningful projects, and many of which I enjoy so much. I never wish to retire. I never want to stop helping people who are victims of scams. I never want to stop helping people who want to plan a wonderful life. I never want to stop helping other planners who might want to know how to plan people's lives before they plan the money. So there's a lot of projects that I probably never wish to retire from. I will just carry on. I think gradually what will happen is I'll stop exchanging my time for money so much and start exchanging my know-how more.
Yes.
Then my time is my own, and the money can come in. A lot of the planners that I work with realise that these ikigai projects, as I call them, doing what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, what you get paid for, having a portfolio of those. It almost creates this intergenerational wealth mechanism that you can then pass down.
Yes.
So you have these assets that then produce an income, and you can pass them down to other people, other future generations. You can create this portfolio opportunities and then pass them down. Because what happens is, you were talking about before when you achieved financial independence, you've achieved the accumulation. What happens is people who are financially free have something called self-actualization. Abraham Maslow calls it self-actualization, which is having the best life you can have with the money that you've got. But Abraham Maslow, in this last year of his life, discovered a seventh level to the hierarchy, which is called self-transcendence. It's actually what you want when you're self-actualized is you want the world to be a better place for you having lived. And Stephen R. Covey talks about this. He said that there are four key elements of what people want in their life. One is to live, one is to love, one is to learn, and the last one is to leave a legacy.
Yes.
So the focus for you and I, Tony, is to leave a legacy, leave a lasting legacy, make the world a better place for us having lived and be long remembered after we are gone. And that's really the focus from this point forward. And that can be in a non-money way, and it can actually be in the money way as well.
Yes. I look back at these famous people. Sometimes go to London and you go to Parliament Square and you see these great statues of great leaders and you think, wow, they've done something that they're going to be remembered forever, or a work of art, or there's a legacy just in terms of something substantial they've achieved, like Martin Luther King, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think that's a wonderful thing to aspire to leave, because you've only got your memory, people have got memories of you. So if you can do something very meaningful, I think that's really, really a great spirit to live in. So do you think you'll ever retire, Steve?
Not for meaningful projects, no.
No.
I think I retire from exchanging my time for money at some point. But I'll always have an income coming in from. I'm an author. I've written books, and
yes,
I have programs that people will continue to use into the future. So that's income from which I'll never retire. So.
Okay. Do you have tips for the listeners about any other ways in which you can live your life to the full in terms of keeping your mental and physical health? Because clearly having purpose is a key one. But have you got any tips for other aspects of your life? Maybe, I don't know, it could be fitness, it could be exercise, it could be, I don't know, a good social life. What other areas would you advise people to?
Yeah, so there are four key areas, and again, Stephen R. Covey talks about these in the 8th Habit. So there's physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being, and spiritual well-being. We've talked about spiritual well-being because that's purpose, having something to get up or to make the world a better place and create a legacy. That's your kind of purpose. So the other elements are emotional well-being. So in Ikigai, in Okinawa and the islands there, you have social units that you belong to and you interact, and that keeps you happy and connected. And, we see through social isolation, we see when that breaks down and people become miserable and unhappy and unhealthy as a result of that. The other thing that we've seen recently is increase in mental stress. And so intellectual well-being, mental well-being is really, really important element to focus on too. But of course, physical well-being is a big element too. So what I do when I'm working with clients is encourage them to optimize their physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, and try and maintain that well-being for as long as possible, because that's really the secret to a long, happy, and prosperous life.
Yes. I think your example of Okinawa is a very interesting one. I don't know if you watched that BBC documentary with Angela Rippon on longevity. She did a two-part series, and she went to different parts of the world. She ended up in Okinawa. The opening credit was a 100-year-old man riding a motorbike.
Yeah.
And what they said was that in Okinawa, because of these things like the great social life, they have great diet, 98% vegan. The fact that they try and learn new things throughout their lives, even in the 90s, that dementia is unheard of.
Yeah.
And I found that really amazing because it does seem to be like a Western disease of poor diet and a lack of exercise and perhaps a lack of social life.
Yeah, it's the retirement, the concept of retirement in the West. So basically we spend our whole working life building up our physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being, and spiritual well-being, having purpose. And then when we retire, if you retire like in the West, the first thing that goes is purpose. You have no purpose. You become what we call you were formerly a doctor or formerly an accountant, and you go from being who's who to who's he. So the first thing that goes, the next thing that goes is your emotional well-being, because what happens is you become isolated initially from your work colleagues, and then 5 years later you're taking yourself off LinkedIn and social media and things because you're no longer relevant, and you start to lose significant people in your life, friends and family, and become increasingly socially isolated in your old age and lonely. And then as well, if you are not intellectually challenged, you stop learning things, and as a result of that senility, dementia, that occurs. You lose your IQ, you lose your rational intelligence, begin to lose that, and finally you're losing the PQ, the physical intelligence, the physical ability, as your body sort of gives up. So in the West we have this great undoing, and the secret they have in Okinawa is they recognize that, and they keep well-being maintained by being active in the areas of body, mind, heart and spirit. Yes.
I mean, you do come across these stories, you hear of people. I was speaking to one of our interviewees the other week, in fact, Jim Mellon, who appeared on the same show 2 weeks ago. And he was telling me his 94-year-old father has started learning a foreign language.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, no wonder he's 94.
Yeah, fantastic.
Keep learning.
I hear some really sad stories from the people who don't do that. So, some people work their entire life to provide for their family, working long hours, and often destroy their health, as a result of that, and their well-being. And I was hearing a story about someone who lost the father. They realised they hadn't had a great relationship with the father as well, because they'd been too busy working.
Yes.
So it's really important to focus on emotional well-being and that connection and physical well-being, and not just focus on the bank account.
There was that nurse who helped men who were in the last terminally ill, but in the last couple of weeks of their lives. She nursed them for about 10 years. She wrote a book about it.
Yeah, it's Bronnie Ware.
Oh, yeah, the 5 regrets of the dying.
It is top 5 regrets of the dying. Yes,
I mean, those things that they regretted, these men, that they worked too many hours, didn't spend enough time with their family.
Well, the number one regret was that they didn't get to live the life true to themselves. They've lived as others expected them to live. Number 2 was they worked too hard. Number 3 is they hadn't kept in touch with friends.
Yes.
Number four was that they didn't speak their truth. So they did, those conversations that they wished they'd had that they didn't have.
Uh-huh.
The last one was they never allowed themselves to be happy, truly happy, and have fun. We sometimes we get very serious with financial planning. We get that element, but none of the regrets related to money. They never said, "I wish I worked more. I wish I had more in the bank account." None of that. It was all about the things that money can't buy, which is really interesting.
We do. I do promote. I do a lot of writing myself, and I recently wrote a blog talking about true wealth, and none of it was about money. None
Yeah.
at all, because it's still true today that the best things in life are free. I really believe that. So I know you've already explained it, but to just sum up, what is your definition of a successful life having lived?
A successful life, I think it comes down to a purpose, knowing your purpose. And the idea with the life plan, the game plan, is that you discover your purpose.
Yes.
And that you then, and if you don't know your purpose is to discover what it is. And basically your purpose is, we all have gifts, unique gifts and talents, and our purpose in life is to use those gifts in the service of other people.
Yes.
And if we can do that through meaningful projects that may or may not create income, depending on whether we need income, but we just need sufficient.
Yes.
And then if we then just have wealth and well-being in every area of our life, in our physical, emotional, mental and spiritual life, and then make the world a better place for us having lived, then that's the ideal plan.
Steve, that's a great note to finish on. I found your interview fascinating today and highly illuminating. I hope our listeners found it too. So I really thank you for your time. Very much appreciated.